The ship came out of faster-than-light travel with a soft hum. Inside, Elena Vasquez looked through the small window at the massive space station floating in the darkness. It was beautiful. Thousands of lights blinked across its surface, like stars brought close enough to touch. This was Harmony's Cradle, the largest meeting place for alien species in the known galaxy. And Elena was about to become the first human to live there permanently. She took a deep breath and checked her reflection in the dark glass. Brown hair pulled back tight. Clean uniform with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. Eyes that looked tired from the long journey, but still held excitement. She had trained 5 years for this moment. 5 years of learning alien languages, studying alien cultures, practicing alien customs. She was ready, or so she thought. The docking process took 30 minutes. When the doors finally opened, Elena stepped onto the station with her bag over her shoulder and a smile on her face. The smile did not last long. The first alien she saw was a Volante. The species looked like a mix between a fox and a deer, with soft golden fur and 6 legs that moved with careful grace. It had large ears that could turn in any direction and big dark eyes that seemed made for seeing in low light. Elena had read about them. They were one of the founding species of the Galactic Cooperative, known for their gentle nature and strong family bonds. The Volante saw Elena at the same moment Elena saw it. The creature's ears went flat against its head. Its fur stood up along its spine. It made a sound, high and sharp, that Elena's translator could not process. Then it ran. Elena stood frozen, her smile gone. She watched the Volante disappear around the corner, moving faster than she had ever seen anything move. Her heart felt heavy in her chest. She had not even said hello. The walk to her assigned quarters took her through the station's main area. It was a wide space filled with plants and water features and benches where aliens could sit and talk. Hundreds of beings moved through it, species of all shapes and sizes. Elena saw creatures with scales and creatures with feathers and creatures with skin that changed color as they walked. She saw beings that floated and beings that crawled and beings that moved in ways she could not understand. And every single one of them moved away from her. It was not obvious at first. Elena thought maybe she was imagining it. But as she walked, she noticed the pattern. Aliens would see her coming and change direction. Groups would stop talking and press themselves against walls. Parents would grab their children and hurry away. The space around Elena grew wider with every step until she was walking through an empty circle in the middle of a crowded station. She reached her quarters feeling sick. The room was small but clean. A bed, a desk, a window looking out at the stars. Elena sat on the bed and put her head in her hands. She had known this might happen. The briefings back on Earth had warned her. Humans were new to the galactic community, and they were different from most species in ways that made others uncomfortable. The galaxy, Elena had learned, was mostly filled with prey species. Creatures that had evolved to run, to hide, to survive by avoiding danger. Their eyes were on the sides of their heads to watch for threats. Their bodies were built for escape. Their cultures were based on caution and community, and the safety of the group. Humans were not like that. Humans had eyes in the front of their faces, like hunters. Humans had bodies that could run for hours without stopping, wearing down prey until it collapsed. Humans ate meat. Humans had a history full of war and violence and conquest. To the prey species that dominated the cooperative, humans looked like the monsters from their oldest nightmares. Elena knew all this. She had prepared for it. But knowing something and feeling it were very different things. Sitting alone in her small room, listening to the silence where friendly voices should have been, she felt the weight of being feared. The next morning, she began her work. As Earth's ambassador, her job was to attend meetings, make connections, and slowly build trust between humanity and the other species. It was supposed to take years. After her first week, Elena wondered if years would be enough. The meetings were the hardest part. Elena would enter a room and feel the fear hit her like a wave. Some species could control their reactions better than others, but she could always see it in their eyes, in the way they held their bodies, in the small steps they took backward when she came too close. She learned to stand near the door. She learned to speak softly. She learned to make herself as small as possible. None of it seemed to help. The Volanti were the worst. There were many of them on the station. Families with young cubs who played in the gardens and learned in the schools. Elena loved watching them from a distance. The cubs were adorable, all fluffy fur and clumsy legs and high-pitched sounds of joy. They chased each other through the plants and tumbled over benches and showed no fear of anything. Until they saw Elena. She did not understand it at first. The cubs would be playing happily, and then suddenly they would freeze. Their ears would go flat. Their small bodies would shake. And then they would run to their parents, crying in voices that broke Elena's heart. She could not figure out what scared them so badly. Then one day, she saw a mother Volanti teaching her cubs about danger. The mother pointed to a picture on a screen, explaining something in her soft language. Elena's translator picked up the words: eyes in front, teeth for meat, runs without stopping, never gives up, will chase until you die. The picture was a human. Elena walked away before anyone saw her. She found an empty corridor and stood there, breathing hard, trying not to cry. She was a warning, a lesson. The monster that alien parents used to teach their children about fear. All her years of training, all her hopes of building peace, and to them she was nothing but a predator. That night, she wrote a message to Earth. She tried to explain how it felt to be hated for what she was. She tried to describe the loneliness of being feared by everyone around her. She asked if maybe they should send someone else, someone who might have better luck. She deleted the message without sending it. Instead, she looked out her window at the stars and made a decision. She could not change what she was. She could not make her eyes move to the sides of her head or remove the hunting instincts from her DNA. But she could show them that being a predator did not mean being a monster. She would prove it somehow. She would find a way to make them understand that humans could be trusted, that they could be gentle, that they could be friends. She just did not know how. In the garden the next day, she sat far from everyone else and watched the Volanti cubs play. They were so small and so happy and so afraid of her. One of them looked in her direction and ran away crying. Elena smiled sadly and stayed very still. Maybe, she thought, if she was patient enough, things would change. Maybe if she showed them day after day that she meant no harm, they would eventually believe it. Maybe it would take months. Maybe it would take years. She had nothing but time. 6 weeks passed on Harmony's cradle, and Elena learned to live with loneliness. She woke up alone, ate alone, worked alone, and went to sleep alone. Sometimes days went by without anyone speaking to her except in formal meetings. She started talking to herself just to hear a friendly voice. The station had rules about safety drills. Every few weeks, an alarm would sound, and everyone would have to move to safe areas. Doors would lock. Corridors would seal. The whole station would practice for emergencies that everyone hoped would never come. Elena had been through 2 drills already. They were boring but simple. Go to the nearest safe room. Wait for the all-clear signal. Return to normal life. The 3rd drill changed everything. It happened on a quiet afternoon. Elena was walking through the Arboretum, the station's large indoor garden. She came here often because it was usually empty during work hours. The plants reminded her of Earth. The air smelled fresh and green and alive. She could close her eyes and almost pretend she was home. The alarm caught her by surprise. Red lights flashed along the walls. A voice spoke in 12 languages, telling everyone to stay where they were. Elena heard the heavy sound of doors locking all around her. She was trapped in the garden until the drill ended. She sighed and looked for a place to sit. Then she heard the crying. It came from behind a group of tall blue plants. Elena walked toward the sound carefully, not wanting to scare anyone. When she pushed the leaves aside, her heart stopped. A Volanthi family was huddled against the wall. 2 adults and 3 cubs, their fur pressed flat with terror. The mother had her body curved around the children, trying to shield them. The father stood in front, shaking so hard that Elena could see it from 10 feet away. Their large, dark eyes were fixed on her. Elena understood immediately. They had been in the garden when the alarm sounded. Now they were locked in here with her. With a predator. With the monster from their worst nightmares. She took a step backward and raised her hands. "I am not going to hurt you," she said softly. Her translator turned her words into their language, but the family only pressed closer together. The smallest cub was crying, making sounds that needed no translation. Pure fear. The kind of fear that came from somewhere deep, somewhere that remembered a time when things like Elena hunted things like them. Elena felt sick. She wanted to leave, to give them space, but there was nowhere to go. The doors were locked. The garden was not that large. No matter where she moved, she would still be too close. So she did the only thing she could think of. She found a tree on the far side of the garden, as far from the family as possible, and she sat down with her back against it. She pulled her knees up to her chest and made herself small. She looked down at the ground, away from them. Then she waited. The first hour was the hardest. Elena could hear the cubs crying and the parents making soft sounds of comfort. She could smell something strange in the air, sweet and sharp at the same time. Later, she would learn it was their fear scent, chemicals their bodies released when they were terrified. The smell made her eyes water. She did not move. She did not look at them. She barely breathed. Around the middle of the second hour, Elena started to hum. It was an old song, something her grandmother used to sing when Elena was small and scared of thunderstorms. The melody was simple and soft, rising and falling like waves on a beach. She hummed it quietly, more to comfort herself than anything else. The crying slowly stopped. Elena kept humming, moving through songs she remembered from childhood. Lullabies her mother sang. Folk songs from school. Simple melodies that meant safety and warmth and home. She did not look up. She did not move. The third hour brought silence except for her humming. Elena's back hurt from sitting so still. Her legs had gone numb. She desperately needed to use the bathroom. But she did not move because she could hear something else now. Small sounds. Soft footsteps on the garden floor. Something touched her boot. Elena froze. She looked down very slowly, moving only her eyes. A cub was standing next to her foot. The smallest one, the one who had been crying the loudest. It had golden fur that stuck up in all directions, and ears that were too big for its head, and eyes that were looking at Elena with something that was not fear. It was curiosity. The cub sniffed her boot. It made a small sound, questioning. Then it looked up at Elena and tilted its head, as if trying to figure out what she was. Elena did not move. She did not breathe. She could hear the parents making sounds of distress across the garden, but they did not come to get their child. Maybe they were too scared. Maybe they did not want to get closer to Elena. Maybe they were frozen, like she was waiting to see what would happen. The cub sniffed her boot again. Then it sniffed her leg. Then, very carefully, it touched her hand with its small nose. Elena felt tears in her eyes. The nose was cold and wet, like a dog's nose. The fur brushed against her skin, softer than anything she had ever felt. The cub made another sound, this one almost happy. Then it sat down beside her. Elena could not believe it. This tiny creature, whose parents had taught it to fear her, whose entire species ran from humans, had chosen to sit beside her. It curled its 6 legs under its small body and pressed itself against her leg, like she was the safest thing in the garden. A few minutes later, the second cub came. This one was bigger, with darker fur and more careful movements. It approached slowly, stopping every few steps to look at its sibling. When it saw that the small one was calm, it came closer. It sniffed Elena's other boot. It looked at her face. Then it sat down on her other side. The third cub took the longest. Elena could see it watching from near its parents, its small body shaking. But it kept looking at its siblings, seeing them peaceful and warm against the human. Finally, it made a decision. It walked across the garden on unsteady legs and joined the others. 3 cubs surrounded Elena, pressed against her like she was their mother. They were warm and soft and making small sounds of contentment. Elena sat perfectly still, tears running down her face, afraid to move even a little bit. The parents watched from across the garden. They had stopped making sounds of distress. They were just watching, their large eyes taking in something that should have been impossible. Their children, their precious cubs, choosing to rest beside a predator. The all-clear signal came. The doors unlocked with a heavy click. But Elena did not move. She could not move. 3 small lives were trusting her, and she would not betray that trust for anything. She stayed still until the cubs woke up on their own, until they stretched and yawned and wandered back to their parents, until the family left the garden, looking back at her with eyes that held something new. Not fear, not hate. Something else, something like wonder. Elena sat alone under the tree for a long time after they left. She was shaking. She was crying. She was smiling. For the first time since arriving on the station, she did not feel like a monster. The smallest cub's name was Curl. Elena learned this 3 days after the garden incident, when she found a message waiting on her computer. It was from the cub's mother. The message was short and strange, full of words that did not translate well, but Elena understood the main point. The mother wanted to meet. They met in a small room near the medical center. Elena arrived first and sat in the corner, trying to take up as little space as possible. When the mother came in, she stopped at the door and stared at Elena for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked Elena completely. She came closer. The mother's name was Vela. She was beautiful in the way all Volanti were beautiful, with silver-tipped fur and eyes like pools of dark water. She moved carefully, her 6 legs placing each step with precision. She sat across from Elena, close enough to touch. "I need to tell you about my daughter," Vela said. Her voice was soft but steady. "About Carl." Elena nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Vela explained that Curl was different from other cubs. Most Volanti were born with something deep in their minds, a feeling that warned them of danger. It was what made them run from predators, what kept them alive in a galaxy full of things that wanted to eat them. Scientists called it the fear response. Every Volanti had it, except Curl. Something had gone wrong when Curl was born. The fear response was weak in her, almost missing. She did not run from loud sounds. She did not hide from strangers. She walked toward things that should have terrified her. Her parents had spent the first year of her life in constant panic, pulling her away from dangers she did not recognize. The doctor said she would not live long, Vela said. Her voice broke a little. They said she would walk into danger and not know to be afraid. They said we should prepare ourselves. Elena felt her heart squeeze tight. "I am so sorry." Vela shook her head. "I did not come here for pity. I came here to understand." She leaned forward, her dark eyes searching Elena's face. "My daughter should have been terrified of you. Every instinct, every lesson, every warning should have told her to run. But she walked up to you like you were safe, like you were family. Elena remembered the small nose touching her hand, the warm body pressing against her leg. I do not know why she did that. I tried so hard not to scare her. That is what I do not understand, Vela said. You are a predator. You could have grabbed her. You could have hurt her. You could have done anything you wanted, and she would not have been afraid. But you just sat there. You did not move for hours. Why? The question hung in the air between them. Elena thought about it for a long time before answering. Because hurting her was never an option, she said finally. The thought did not even enter my mind. She was small and helpless and trusting, and something inside me wanted to protect her. Not hunt her. Protect her. Vela was quiet. Then she said something that changed everything. Curl keeps asking about you. She wants to see you again. Elena's breath caught. What? She calls you the warm one. She says your heartbeat was nice to listen to. She keeps going to the garden, looking for you. Vela's voice was shaking now. My other children have started asking questions too. They want to know why sitting beside you felt safe. They want to know if they can do it again. Elena did not know what to say. This was not supposed to happen. She was supposed to be feared, avoided, kept at a distance. She was not supposed to have cubs wanting to sit with her. I do not know if I should allow it, Vela continued. Every part of me says this is wrong, dangerous, stupid. But I watched my children sleep beside you. I watched you sit still for hours rather than disturb them. I watched you cry when they chose to trust you. She paused. My fear tells me to keep them away from you. But my eyes tell me something different. Elena leaned forward slowly, carefully. What do your eyes tell you? That maybe we have been wrong about humans. That maybe the fear is not the truth. Vela's fur rippled, a sign of emotion Elena was learning to read. I want to believe that. I want to believe my daughter sees something the rest of us are too scared to see. What would it take? Elena asked. What would it take for you to believe it? Vela thought for a moment. Come to the garden tomorrow. Let Carl find you. Let her sit with you while I watch. Let me see for myself if what happened was real or just an accident. Elena agreed without hesitation. The next day, she went to the garden at the agreed time. She sat under the same tree and waited. She did not have to wait long. Carl came running through the plants like a small golden ball of energy. She saw Elena and made a sound of pure joy, high and bright and happy. She ran straight to Elena and climbed into her lap before Elena could even react. Elena looked up and saw Viola standing at the edge of the garden, watching. Other Velanthi were there too, drawn by some invisible signal. They watched as Curl curled up in the human's lap and closed her eyes. Then the other cubs came. Carl's siblings, the ones who did have the fear response, the ones who should have been terrified. They came slowly, carefully, but they came. They sniffed Elena's hands. They touched her hair. They made small sounds of curiosity. One by one, they chose to sit beside her. Elena stayed perfectly still, her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Cubs surrounded her, pressed against her, trusting her completely. She looked at Vela with tears in her eyes. Vela's fur was flat with shock. The other Velanthi were frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. These were not broken cubs like Curl. These were healthy, normal children with working fear responses. And they had chosen to sit beside a predator. An elder Velanthi pushed through the crowd. She was old, her fur silver with age, her eyes clouded but wise. She looked at Elena for a long time. Then she looked at the cubs. Interesting, she said softly. Very interesting indeed. Elena did not move. She barely breathed. She just sat there, surrounded by small, warm bodies, while the galaxy watched and wondered. Something was changing. She could feel it. Something old and deep and important. The cubs had made a choice that their parents could not understand. They had looked at a predator and seen something else. Something safe. Something worthy of trust. And now the adults had to decide what that meant. In Elena's lap, Carl made a sound of pure contentment. It sounded like the beginning of something new. News traveled fast on Harmony's cradle. By the next morning, everyone on the station knew about the human and the cubs. The story spread through whispers and messages and shared videos, growing stranger with each telling. Some said the human had used some kind of trick. Others said the cubs were sick or damaged. A few said it was all a lie, a trick played by humans to make themselves seem less dangerous. But the videos did not lie. Anyone could watch and see the truth. Small Volanthi cubs, their fear responses working perfectly, choosing to sit beside a human predator, climbing into her lap, falling asleep against her warmth. That the station's leaders called an emergency meeting. Elena was not invited, but she heard about it anyway. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss what the videos meant. Some argued that humans were more dangerous than anyone had thought, that they could somehow turn off the fear response in prey species. Others argued that the cubs were just too young to know better. A few suggested that Elena should be removed from the station before she caused more confusion. Then the old Volanthi elder spoke. Her name was Grandmother Sarith, and she was the oldest living Volanthi on the station. She had seen wars and plagues and first contacts with dozens of species. She had watched civilizations rise and fall. When she spoke, everyone listened. I watched the human myself, Grandmother Sarith said. I watched her for hours. Do you want to know what I saw? The room went quiet. I saw a predator doing the hardest thing a predator can do. I saw her choosing stillness over action. I saw her ignoring her instincts, fighting her nature, causing herself pain just to avoid scaring children who were not even her own species. Grandmother Sarith's old voice was steady. I have lived for 200 years. I have met many creatures. I have never seen anything like that. A Korthan official stood up. The Korthan were large and armored, one of the few species that did not fear humans because they were too big to be prey. With respect, Grandmother, you are letting emotion cloud your judgment. Humans are predators. Their history proves it. Their bodies prove it. One human sitting still for a few hours does not change what they are. You are right, Grandmother Sarith agreed. It does not change what she is. But it shows us that what she is may be more complicated than we thought. She turned to face the whole room. We have spent so long being afraid of predators that we forgot something important. We forgot that predators can choose. Another representative spoke up, a small feathered being from a species Elena did not recognize. Choose what? What to hunt? What to protect? What to love? Grandmother Sarith's eyes seemed to look at something far away. When I was young, my colony was attacked by raiders. Predator species, all of them, who saw us as nothing but prey. They took our food. They destroyed our homes. They killed anyone who fought back. The room was completely silent. We were saved by a single creature, a predator from a species we had never met before. It came out of nowhere and fought the raiders alone. It was wounded badly, but it kept fighting until every raider was dead or fled. Grandmother Sarith's voice dropped low. When we asked why it helped us, why it risked its life for prey species, it did not know. Do you know what it said? No one answered. It said, because you were small and they were hurting you. The old Volanthi let the words hang in the air. That predator became my closest friend. It protected our colony for 30 years until it died. And in all that time, it never once hurt any of us. Not because it could not, but because it chose not to. The Korthan official shifted uncomfortably. That is one story. One predator out of millions. Yes, Grandmother Sareth agreed. But now we have another story. Another predator choosing protection over hunting. Another predator caring for the small and helpless. If it can happen twice, it can happen more. And if it can happen more, then perhaps we have been wrong to paint all predators with the same fear. The meeting went on for hours. Species argued and debated and could not reach agreement. But something had shifted. Grandmother Sareth's words had planted a seed of doubt in minds that had been closed for generations. Elena learned about the meeting from Vela, who had heard about it from a friend. She listened without speaking, her heart heavy with emotions she could not name. What happens now? Elena asked when Vela finished. I do not know, Vela admitted. The station leaders cannot decide what to do about you. Some want you to stay. Some want you to leave. Some want to study you like a strange new animal. Elena laughed bitterly. I am a strange new animal, I suppose. A predator who does not want to hunt. Vela was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Pearl asks about you every day. She asks when she can see the warm one again. She does not understand why I cannot give her a simple answer. What do you want? Elena asked. Not what the station wants. Not what your species wants. What do you want? Vela's fur rippled with emotion. I want to stop being afraid all the time. I want my children to be safe. I want to believe that the galaxy is not as dangerous as we have always thought. She looked at Elena with those deep dark eyes. I want to believe that a predator can be a friend. Then believe it, Elena said softly. Give me a chance to prove it. Give all of us a chance. The next day, Grandmother Sareth came to the garden. She found Elena sitting under her tree, alone as usual. The old Volante moved slowly, her aged body not as strong as it once was. She sat down across from Elena, close enough to touch. I want to tell you something, Grandmother Sareth said. Something I have not told anyone in many years. Elena waited. The predator who saved my colony. The one I told the meeting about. Grandmother Sareth's eyes met Elena's. It had eyes in the front of its head. It had teeth made for meat. It ran without stopping when it chased the raiders. It looked, Ambassador Vasquez, very much like you. Elena's breath caught. I have been watching humans since your species first made contact with the cooperative. I have been waiting to see if you would be like the raiders or like my old friend. I have been waiting a very long time. Grandmother Sareth reached out with one ancient paw and touched Elena's hand. I believe I have my answer now. Tears fell from Elena's eyes. She did not try to stop them. What convinced you? She managed to ask. The cubs, Grandmother Sareth said simply. Children have no politics. They have no history. They have no reason to pretend. When they chose to trust you, they were telling the truth that adults are too scared to see. The old Volante smiled, her silver fur shining in the garden's light. The truth that some predators are protectors. And your species, I think, might be the greatest protectors the galaxy has ever seen. Elena could not speak. She just held the old paw in her hand and cried out in the trees around them. Hidden from view, dozens of Volante watched. Cubs who had heard about the human who felt warm. Parents who had heard about the children who were not afraid. Elders who remembered Grandmother Sarah's story and wondered if it was about to happen again. Something was changing on Harmony's cradle, something wonderful. 3 months after the incident in the garden, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the full Galactic Cooperative Assembly. The room was massive, built to hold representatives from over 1,000 species. Every seat was filled. Millions more watched through screens across the galaxy. This was the largest audience any human had ever addressed. Elena's hands were shaking, but she kept them still at her sides. She had written and rewritten her speech 100 times. She had practiced it until the words felt like part of her. But now, standing before all these eyes, all these beings who had feared her kind since the first contact, she felt the speech slip away, so she spoke from her heart instead. "When I came to Harmony's cradle," she began, "I expected difficulty. I knew that humans were new to the cooperative. I knew that we looked like the predators from your oldest fears. I was prepared for suspicion and caution and distance." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. "I was not prepared for how much it would hurt. I was not prepared for children running away from me crying. I was not prepared for the loneliness of being feared by everyone I met. I was not prepared to feel like a monster when I knew in my heart that I was not one." The assembly was completely silent. Then something happened. I was trapped in a garden with a family of Volanthi during a safety drill. For 3 hours, I sat perfectly still because I did not want to scare them more than they already were. I hummed old songs from my planet. I looked at the ground. I made myself as small and quiet as I could. Alana's voice grew stronger. And then the children came to me. One by one, they walked away from their terrified parents and sat beside me. They pressed against me for warmth. They fell asleep in my lap. They chose to trust me when everything in their nature should have made them run. She saw Volanthi in the audience, their ears turned toward her. She saw Carl in the front row, sitting beside Vela, her small body vibrating with excitement. I am not going to stand here and tell you that humans are safe. We are not safe. We are predators. Our ancestors hunted. We have forward-facing eyes and bodies built for pursuit. This is our history, and we cannot change it. The assembly stirred uneasily, but I am going to tell you something else. Something that might be more important. Elena's voice filled the massive room. Somewhere in our past, we learned to sit beside the fire with wolves. Wild animals, predators like us, who should have been our competitors. We did not hunt them. We did not drive them away. We invited them to share our warmth, and over thousands of years, they became our closest companions. She took a step forward. We did the same with horses, with cats, with birds and fish and creatures of every kind. Something in humans reaches out to other living things and wants to protect them, wants to care for them, wants to love them with a strength that even we do not fully understand. Elena looked directly at Carl. Your children came to me because they saw something their parents were too afraid to see. They saw what humans really are. Not just predators, not just hunters, but protectors, guardians, creatures who will fight and bleed and die to keep safe the things we have chosen to love. Carol was bouncing in her seat, barely able to contain herself. I know you are afraid of us. I understand why. We are dangerous, and we always will be. But I need you to understand something. Elena's voice dropped low, but it still carried to every corner of the room. The danger in humans flows in only one direction. We do not hurt what trusts us. We do not harm what loves us. We do not destroy what we have chosen to protect. She paused. Those cubs chose to trust me, and I would die before I betrayed that trust. I would fight any enemy, face any danger, give everything I have to keep them safe. Not because I was asked to, not because it would benefit me, but because that is what humans do. That is who we are. The assembly was frozen. No one moved. No one breathed. Then Carol did something that would be remembered for centuries. She broke free from her mother and ran. Her small legs carried her down the aisle, past shocked representatives from dozens of species, straight toward the human standing alone at the center of the room. Elena saw her coming and dropped to her knees, arms open, tears streaming down her face. Carl leaped into her embrace. The sound she made was not fear. It was not distress. It was joy. Pure, complete, unshakable joy. The small cub wrapped herself around Elena and held on tight, showing the entire galaxy what trust looked like. For a long moment, Nothing happened. Then Vela stood up. She walked down the aisle toward her daughter and the human. When she reached them, she did not pull Curl away. She sat down beside Elena and pressed her fur against the human's arm. One by one, other Volanti followed. Cubs who had heard the stories. Parents who had watched the videos. Elders who remembered grandmother Sarah's words. They came down from their seats and gathered around Elena until she was surrounded by a sea of golden fur. Then other species began to move. Small ones first, the ones who had always been most afraid. They approached slowly, carefully, but they approached. They touched Elena's hand, her hair, her shoulder. They made sounds of greeting in 100 different languages. The Corton security chief was the last to move. He was huge, armored, built like a walking tank. He stomped down the aisle, his heavy footsteps echoing in the now quiet room. He stopped in front of Elena and looked down at her. "I was wrong about your species," he said. His voice was rough, but not unkind. "It seems predators can choose to be something more." He held out one massive armored hand, while Elena took it. Her small human fingers wrapped in his giant grip. The assembly erupted. In the months and years that followed, everything changed. Humans were no longer feared. They were sought out. Species that had run from them now requested human guardians for their young, human protectors for their vulnerable, human friends for their lonely. The galaxy learned that having a human care about you was the safest feeling in the universe, because humans loved fiercely, completely, unconditionally. And when a human chose to protect something, nothing in the galaxy could stand against them. Elena stayed on Harmony's cradle for the rest of her life. She became the most beloved ambassador in cooperative history. She watched Carl grow up, strong and brave, and still completely without fear. She held Carl's cubs, and later her cubs' cubs, generations of small golden lives that knew no terror of humans. On the day Elena died, thousands of species came to honor her. The station fell silent as her body was carried through the corridors she had once walked alone. The Lanti cubs climbed onto her casket and refused to leave, honoring her the only way they knew how. At the memorial, Carl, now old herself, spoke the words that would be carved into Elena's monument. Words that would be remembered long after everyone who had known her was gone. "She was a predator," Carl said, "and she chose to love us. She chose to protect us. She chose to sit very still for hours rather than scare us. And because she made that choice, we learned the truth about her species." Carl looked out at the gathered crowd, species beyond counting, all brought together by one human woman who had refused to be a monster. "Humans are dangerous," Carl said, "but they are only dangerous to those who threaten what they love. And humans love so easily, so completely, so forever." She placed her paw on the monument. "She was the first human we trusted. She will not be the last." And she was right. In a galaxy that had feared predators for millions of years, humanity became something new. Not hunters, not monsters, not threats. Guardians. Protectors. Family. All. Because one woman sat still in a garden and let the cubs learn to sit beside her without fear. All because she chose love over instinct. All because she was human.